Today we're going to walk through the process of piecing together a beautiful quilt block that is easy to master whether you're new to quilting or a seasoned expert. And the best part, when you're done, I've got a free downloadable PDF waiting for you to turn this block into a super easy to make table runner. Now I'm going to be using 3 colours for my block, but feel free to use more or less. However, I'm going to stick with the 3 because I think you get the most striking effect, but I will show you some variations with different colour combinations later in this video. Now we're making a 10-inch finished block, but we have the measurements for 3 other sizes over on our blog, and I'll put a link to that in the description field for this video. So to start, we are going to set aside these pieces and only work with all of the 3-inch squares. Now I'm going to take each of the white squares and I'm going to flip them over because I want to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of these pieces. I'm using a friction pen, which I try not to use on white, but I'm going to use it so you can easily see what I'm doing in this tutorial. So you can see that I'm lining up the ruler on the diagonal and just drawing a line, and I'll do that on all of the white 3-inch pieces. Once that's done for each square, I'm going to place the pink and the black squares face side up on the mat, and then I'll place a white square face down on top of each of those squares, so the mark you drew is facing upwards. Now I'm going to pin these together because I like to pin everything, but you don't have to if you feel confident enough without them. So I have them all pinned now, and as you can see I have a pile of pink pieces and a pile of black pieces. And what we're going to do is take each of these and sew along each side of the diagonal line that you drew with a 1/4 inch seam. Now I find the best way to sew these is to chain piece them, so I'll take the first square, sew down one side, then place the next one into the machine and sew along that one, and so on. And once they're all sewn on one side, I'll flip them around and chain piece along the other side. Then I'll clip them apart with my trusty snips. Now we're going to take our ruler and line it up on the line we drew and cut through with our rotary cutter, or you could use scissors of course, and I will repeat it with all of these blocks. Now we need to take these to the ironing board, and what I'm going to do is press the seam towards the dark side of the fabric. Now pressing it this way does 2 things. It prevents the dark fabric seam from showing up on the white side of the fabric, and it also helps us to align the seams, as you'll see when we start piecing these squares together. So I've pressed all of my squares and I've trimmed them back to 2.5 inch squares. I do that so that they're all exactly the same size. It does make for a more professional finish when everything is cut perfectly. Now if you've never trimmed back half square triangles, then we have a video on how to do that, and I'll add a link to that in the description field below. Now we just need to lay out the pieces like so, and I'm going to start by sewing these 2 pieces together, and I'll do the same with the 2 pieces below it, and I'll repeat that with all of these pieces in all 4 corners. Now that they're sewn, I'll just quickly show you how I press them. So this one has the seams running in this direction, and the other one has the seams running in the other direction. Now this is going to help with nesting the seams so that everything lines up nicely. And now I'm going to sew these 2 together to form a square. So I'll just place one on top of the other and sew with a 1/4 inch seam, and I'll repeat that with all of these pieces in all 4 corners. Now that I have my square sewn, I can start sewing the rows together. So I'll take this one and place it over this and sew with a 1/4 inch seam, and I'll repeat that with the other side here. And in the middle I will sew this piece onto here and this piece onto the other side. And I will do the same for the bottom row. So I've sewn the 3 rows together, and I'll just quickly show you how I've pressed the seams. So for the top row here you can see that all the seams are facing inwards, and for the middle row they're facing outwards, and for the bottom row they're facing inwards. This again will help with nesting the seams so that everything lines up nicely. Now we just need to sew those 3 rows together, and that is the block complete. Now, as you can see here, I've completed 3 of them because I'm going to turn these into a table runner. Now if you'd like to do the same, we have a free PDF on the website on how to make it, and you don't need to go and sign up to our newsletter to download it. Just click and download. Also, as promised, I'm going to show you some of the colour variations you can go with for this block to give you some inspiration.